Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7 of how to create a turn-based RPG on Prpject Spark. What I'm going to start with right away is fixing something we ran into last time. Go ahead and go to page in combat, line 7, copy this, can enter combat equals true. We are going to put it over here in the main page, and we are going to make it child to a countdown timer of 2 seconds. The reason we are doing that because when we come back to this main page, we want there to be a 2-second window before we can enter combat again. Very, very straightforward. Alright, another thing that we're going to do is we're going to prevent some future problems from happening. Right now, because of the way the combat's working, we're not going to see this happen, but if we don't fix it, it's going to create some major issues in the future. So what it is it's an end combat sequence of some sort. When combat ends, what we are told to do is have the player, for each of players it combat equals false. When it combat equals false, it is in this brain and it runs this line of code. Okay? The problem is if we've pushed our brain from here to say here, player turn, we no longer know what to do with this information. We no longer know what to do with this because that other brain's been pushed on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so essentially when the enemy is dead, when there are no more enemies within like that are in combat, when our enemy count is equal to 0 essentially, we're going to pop our brains back out to combat. So we know what to do essentially. So how we're going to do that in these attack functions is pretty simple. What would happen here, I mean, this is a pretty obvious one. Attack. You're going to blah, 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 you're going to do all this line of code. When your attack hit, your attacking equals false. But what if the enemy died, like, while you're on your way to attack him? What if he got hit by poison? Or what if an ally killed him or something? So what we're going to do is change this to or. My enemy health is less than or equal to 0. Alright? Does that make sense? Enemy health less than or equal to 0. What we're also going to do is we're going to put that in the shoot function. We're going to add or. Actually, we can just do it this way. So attack hit or enemy health equal to 0. Switch page end turn. When it ends the turn, it knows to pop this brain. Here, what happens is when the attack hits, and we detect our spot, we pop brain. Or now it's or attack hit or health is 0, and then you detect your spot. You pop brain. Then you come down here after the attack. You left off here. You start right back up here. You switch to page end turn, and you pop this brain. You're back to combat brain. You're back to this brain. You are now going to be able to remove this brain. You're going to be able to run this function. Everything's going to return back to where it was, and you're going to pop back out to here. So let's go ahead and test this real quick. I think the best way to do it is, there's not really a way to test that, honestly, until we get multiple players in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create multiple players. But what we need to do first is we need to get this guy's brain. So go ahead and go into his brain, and we're going to save this brain. Save as main C. That's what I'm going to call it, just main character brain. Whoa, lightning fast. Okay, and we're going to create a new logic cube, and then when we create that logic cube, we are going to put that brain inside of that logic cube. So go ahead and go into this brain, select brain gallery, and select, you can't search for it because it's a custom named brain, which is kind of a bummer. We're going to put that in there. And now the only thing that we need in this brain is what is basically going to only be subject to this, like variables that are only subject to this character. So we can delete this page. We need our values still, but we don't need to know that can enter combat is true. We don't need to know what team you're on. We don't need to know what your spot is. the only thing that we need in this character is what separates him from all of the other characters. Yes, that's right. We're going to start making other characters. For now, we're just going to swap the mesh. This is, again, you can customize these all you want, but for now, I'm just going to do something super simple so we get the skeleton of the game, and you guys can customize them later. So these will be our second players, or second and third players. This is our main character, so spot 1, aka main character, okay? So everything that we had in there is now in here. So let's say we want to make this guy our main character. What we're going to do is we're going to go here to page 2, main page. This is the second page of this guy. And we're going to say add brain. This one to slot. The slot is going to be called spot. Okay? Add brain, spot 1, main character, to slot, spot. Hey, that's going to happen one time and one time only. So let's go here. And now if we were to play the game, we would see that this player would function all by himself because he now has this brain. These players would not because they don't have any information. So let's create our second spot. This will be a support character. It'll be a character we don't see when we're wandering, when we're in wandering mode, I suppose, but we will see this character when we are in combat. So we don't need a camera to follow them, we don't need the stick, we don't need to detect. We do need to know when they're in combat though, and we will need the rest of these. Let's see here. I think that's good. We do need to change this one, its spot to 2. And in these brains, we don't need our stats because our stats are not determined based on what spot you're in. Our stats are determined based on what character you are. So let's say this guy, his speed, he's a little slower. So we'll make him have a speed of 0.8. But his strength will stay at 100. This guy's speed, again, speed is the rate at which your energy refills. His speed is going to be 1. But his attack is going to be 80. Then this chick, maybe she's a little faster, so her speed will be 1.2, but she's weaker, so her strength will be 60, okay? You tracking with me? Let's do this. Spot 2. Again, we've made it different than spot 1 because this character does not actually need to be controlled by any means. So, let's do this. Let's say this villager adds this brain, spot 2. Okay? So the villager has spot 2. Now, we have this guy taking spot 1, this guy taking spot 2. One thing that we don't have, however, is how we know that this character needs to go into combat. So let's see here. In this guy's brain, what we have, in player 1 or your main character's brain, what you have is this: when in combat equals true, position equal pre-combat equals position. When in combat equals true, we want to say this. We want to say for each of our allies, essentially, maybe we do that on this page. So for each of allies, well, actually, you know what? What we need to do is we need to somehow say that our allies need to enter combat too. There's a pretty simple way we can do this, but I don't want to use in-world picker if I can avoid it. So let's see. This guy is going to equal. Let's do this. Let's say this is our party cube. Okay, so we'll call this our party cube. So this will control our party later on in the game, okay? Like what characters are in our party. So whoever is in here, whoever holds this brain, they're going to be called player 1. Okay? Player 1 equals me. But we're going to use this. We are going to use object in world picker, but a little differently than I had said before. So, party player 1 equals me. And this is party player 2. Whoops. Party player 2 equals me. So what we'll do here is when, let's see, let's have in combat, when party 1, when player 1, when player 1 in combat equals true, turtle equals turtle, player 2 we're going to say started to. We just need this to happen once. Started to, player 2 in combat equals true. Now, we're doing this a little silly, but that's because later on this cube is going to control how our party functions. I'm going to change party to, we're going to say like a yellow color, because yellow is going to be like our AI. That's more of like a vomit, like gross, nasty color, mustard. But that mustard color right there is going to be like our user interface of some sort. Basically hidden controls you don't really see but you interact with. Okay, so that's this yellow cube right here. When player 1 in combat equals true, started to, player 2 in combat equals true. So let's go ahead and try this. We're going to turn these into templates. And let's see what happens. We may run into some issues. So this is our player 1. He's awfully slow. We enter combat. Yep. Oh, sweet. And they both come out here. They're both going to probably fight at the same... Oh, no, they won't fight at the same time because this guy's faster. We fight. And then he fights. Okay, what we're running into now is the goblin's energy is refilling when it's at 0, when they're at 0 health, and we don't want that. So as we bring more players into the combat, we are going to see stuff like this happen. So when charging equals true and health is greater than 0. So when charging equals true and health greater than 0, we can do that. Oh, this looks like we don't need that anymore. I don't know why that's there. I don't know what that is. So yeah, now it's saying when we have more health than 0 and our charging is true. Let's go ahead and test this again. We'll see player 1 and player 2 run out into the combat zone. I should have moved him closer so he didn't have to run so far. And I really should turn up everybody's speed too, so we don't have to test all of that. Okay, this will be good. This will be good. So we will kill him right away, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so our second player went back, but our first player did not go back. So let's go ahead and test. We'll go back here. Why did our player not return to his combat zone? So player 2 did, but player 1 did not. In combat equals true. When in combat equals true. So we still had our combat brain on. So let me think here. He had an arrow above his head, so it's like he was stuck on this screen here. Then when I pressed a button, it would go over here. So let's do this. When my enemy health equals 0, end turn. When enemies count equals 0. When enemies count equals 0, end turn. Energy equals 0. Master combat charging equals true. Pop brain. We're gonna pop that brain. It's gonna come back to here. And let's try this again. We may run into some issues yet, but we shall see. Come on, Tubby. I keep saying I gotta fix that darn camera. So we ran into 3 monsters this time. It's probably good. The more monsters there are, the more we'll see glitches and such. So you see that his attack didn't hit. That's going to be another glitch. So in AI, so he waited till he was, let's see, he shot at him. So let's do this. When what? Combat. When attacking. That should be it. I mean, we'll see. We'll try to make it happen again. So now when attacking, we skip the page. That camera is such an easy fix. I just forget to do it in between games. Hopefully you've fixed that camera thing by now. Just add with controls to the main camera. Okay, we'll see. This will be a good way to test it. Hey, looky there. It worked. This might be a good way to see too. Guy's bar is filling. Alright. So their energy is not being reset to 0. Sweet. That's what we want. When the red arrow's above their head, we want them to return to their spot. So they both hit it at the same time. If I could run into 3 of them, I could really test it. Yeah, here we go. So notice at the beginning of combat, they don't have 0 energy. We want that to happen. Oh, so his enemy got destroyed. When I went to attack, his enemy got destroyed. So that's good. That's another bug we found. So let's go to this. Let's see, this one here. And when attack hit or my enemy health less than or equal to 0. So we'll actually say or enemies count is equal to 0. Okay, or enemies count is equal to 0. And for now, our my enemy equals enemies nearest object. Later on, we're going to have it so you can choose who your enemy is. You guys may have already added that to yours by now. That's totally fine. Let's add one more character. Let's add a 3rd character and see if we can find a couple more bugs in our game. Okay, and a lot of what we're finding isn't too big of a deal, but some of it is going to be definitely game changing, and we want to fix it as soon as we can. So party player 3 now. Party player 3. Combat equals true. All right, I think we've got everything we need here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remember to fix those last couple errors this time. And after we run this test, we will call this a video. Okay, in this camera, we're going to put without controls. Okay, so we can't control that camera now. And we're going to move Homeboy here over here. And also, we want to make this kind of a like classic RPG style. So what we want to say is in these cubes here, when in combat is true, we're going to say visible equals true. But we actually want to do it here. We want to say when you enter combat, visible equals true. When you are not in combat, visible equals false. So this is when page entered. When you first enter this page, visible equals false. So now it's going to be like classic RPG style where you don't see the characters, then all of a sudden when you enter combat you do. So I only did that to one of them, so it'll work for one of them. And the other person didn't even enter combat, so we will figure out why. Oh, because I don't have her adding the brain. Duh. Silly default. Spot 3 added to slot spot. Spot 2. Page entered. Visible equals false. And then on this last page here, visible equals true. And we shall test run it. Final test before we call the video. We'll run into this area here. Everyone enters combat. We have a 3 versus 3. The epic battle of eternity. Meh. And all the goblins watch her because we have a goofy combat selection system, or target selection system. Boom. So let's see if everyone teleports back to where they need to be. Hey, look at that. Yeah. So we have fixed a few bugs. We have made it so the camera cannot move while we are in combat, and we have successfully added multiple characters to our combat system. I feel like that is a success.